Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the long-awaited and promised 15th episode of my podcast, where you and I will hopefully smile once again. I'm Nicholas Malson, and I'm not on my own today. I will introduce the guests in a minute, but before we do that, I'll just have to say a couple of things as I usually do. First things first, if this is your first episode of this podcast, welcome, and I hope you will enjoy your stay. If not, welcome back, and I hope you will enjoy your stay as well. Once again, thank you to Anchor.fm for distributing this podcast with ease. Thanks to Anchor.fm, I've got this podcast available on Spotify, Google Podcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, and Breaker. I also have this podcast available on YouTube. However, I publish the episodes there manually. If you want to communicate with me either publicly or in person, YouTube will be the best place to go. Either leave a comment on any of my videos on my channel, which is simply called Smile Once Again Podcast with a similar logo you may have seen before. Or if you want to have a more anonymous conversation, or you don't want your conversation to be read out in public, simply leave me an email. The email address is smileonceagainpodcast@gmail.com. That's smileonceagainpodcast@gmail.com. All small letters, no special characters apart from the @sign. I am waiting for your communications. So, with that being said, I would like to welcome my guest today. Usually it would be just me and another person, but today it's going to be a much more special experience, not just for me, but for my guests as well, because I have two guests. So, firstly, I would like to welcome a returning guest who has been willing to join me once again since episode 10. Please welcome Michael. Michael, good to see you again.
Good
Hello.
to see you. Good to see you, Nikita. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much, and it's thrilling to be here again. And
Thank
I'm
you.
really joyful, to be here today.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming in again. And the next guest is a very interesting one because I have literally been acquainted to him last week, and I do not know the guy at all. I only know that he is a friend of Michael's, but from the short conversation we had before the podcast, I can already say that he has a lot of promising things to talk about. Everyone, please welcome Eustace. Eustace, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as well. It will be interesting.
All right. All right, thank you for joining, and I hope you guys are doing well. I can't wait. I think this is going to be a very interesting discussion. Obviously, before we have started, we have discussed the potential topics that we wanted to share our thoughts with. And gentlemen, Michael, let's start with you. What do you have?
Yeah, I have quite a couple of topics that we and I have thought about, and then we have discussed them. Okay. So I believe that could be first I would be starting with just being like conscious about your everyday life, and not just because of the out of blue I chose this topic, not because of just some abstract reason, but it's just how I lived my life before. And lately I've noticed that yet now, with me being like nearly 26 years of age, I'm starting to be actually aware of the things happening in my life. I couldn't say that it's like specifically an age thing. Maybe it's a mentality, maybe it's a little shift or an ongoing development that's happening in my mental state. So with me being maturing, with me growing older, with me having finished both bachelor's and master's, and now working already for a year in my field of studies, and working for like I don't know which year in life. Not that I have the longest work experience, but still, doing things in my life have brought me to this conclusion. So I would definitely begin with being conscious. What being conscious means for me, I believe it is first and foremost health. As you, Nikita, I like to speak a lot about this Maslow's pyramid of needs, hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. I believe that health and safety are both at level 1, or is it level 2? Level 2, I believe. So
No, it is level 2, yes.
level
The
2.
first level is basic needs for survival, so it's
Okay.
more physiological and stuff like
Food
that.
and drink.
So health and exactly, yeah, food and drink, warmth, good rest, hygiene, and something called homeostasis, which is basically your natural kind of body cycle. Just kind of like that, the better you have it, the better your life is going to be. But health and safety is mostly on the second level of your needs in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's correct.
All right, so there you go. You were still pretty much in the foundation, and these are still pretty much very needed processes that you have. And for a long time, I have mentioned it in the episode 10, and I don't want to elaborate on this too much more in this episode, but I've been telling that I quit smoking, and I'm very glad to say that it has been like 2 years, more than 2 years now even, that I've quit smoking, and have never returned gladly to this process again, which has actually, I believe, is now saving my, especially in these hard times, it's saving my lungs and breathing system from being more potentially harmed, even though this is a huge topic of discussion for people. People who smoke can be actually more safe from COVID just because they have, this inhale too much of chemicals and whatever not, and that covers their lungs from the inside, so they so they are like more resilient from it, which is like still a crazy theory, but I believe I heard it on the radio.
Amazing.
Yeah, but the thing is that being on time, being properly understanding, listening to your body, listening to what your moral says, listening to what your, I don't know, inner organs so-called say, right? What they signal to you, if there is pain or whatever not, as you elaborated in the previous episode, means that something needs to be changed in life. And then it's up to us to choose whether we want to change it or whether we see it as a potentially changeable thing, or whether it is something to be ignored. So lately I've been pursuing the thing with writing down whatever I feel and whatever I think about. I'm not so consistent with it, unfortunately, but when I do, I usually try to be elaborate in this as well. So, for example, I write down how I feel and then what I think about throughout like a part of the day or a day. And then from that, if I reread it afterwards, I can definitely feel some benefit from me, and I can get to know myself better this way. So this brings a consciousness of my insight to my mind, which I don't really didn't really think about before. But as we have a person who is more keen and more into this psychology stuff, Eustace, I would love to hear your opinion about how this processes of getting conscious, of becoming conscious, to actually help your mental state or physical state as well.
Yeah, the topic has always, come back around from time to time, either listening to podcasts or reading books, any kind of philosophical thing. You can always see that people are talking about, consciously seeing things, observing, trying to expand their consciousness in some ways, like for example meditation. But to me personally, I am, how to say, sometimes I even see myself doing things that were completely out of the line of my own, imagination of myself. I have this idea that I'm this calm person, and I could go through anything, any kind of, problem or argument with other people easily. But say, for example, something one day snaps, and you just, release all the anger has been pent up. And you can't, and when you're doing, in hindsight, when you're looking back at the moment, you can't exactly pinpoint where it comes from. So it's been fascinating for me because of that. And I think that, at least for myself, what has happened, I have started realizing what I am not conscious of, right? Say, for example, the hermeneutic worldview, like two people having these resonating, ideas around themselves. And then suddenly these two bubbles collide, and then the best sentence ever that I've heard, when another person looks, at you, or you look at the other person, and you can see the splinter in their eye, like meaning, bad ideas, judgments about you, but you can never see the log in yours. Meaning that however much introspection you think you might have, there is always something deeper that you might not even be conscious of. Right? Say, for example, where your feelings come from, where, some behaviors come from that you do. How did they manifest even? And since watching several classes from, what was his name? Robert Sapolsky from Stanford University, I believe that he put it the best. Like, in order to, look at a specific behavior in this point of time, you not only have to look at what happened like a second ago, you have to look at what happened 2 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago, a day, a week, a month, a year, a person's lifetime, and their grandfather's lifetimes as well, in order to actually figure out why this specific, thing happened. So as I'm going into it, I really looking at my own conscious, I am being more and more fascinated with it every time I learn something new. So, but personally, yeah, to me, knowing what I'm not conscious of is a really big tool, to like use in self-analysis later on. Say, for example, why did you smoke? That would be a really interesting and curious thing for me to actually look at. Did you say felt, that you had to be together with somebody? Say, for example, I only picked up smoking when I had a crush on one girl, So for me, smoking was just being, close to this person. While for others, smoking is, like my dad, for example, it's a kind of way to winding down, So it's really fascinating things. So yeah.
It's a great perspective, Eustace, and you took it very deep, and it just I could never tell from this much of the aspects, especially when you say it's like coming from the ancestors' lifelines and life habits that influences your choice or behavior in the situation. Nikita, the host, sorry, Nick. What is this perspective that you have on being conscious of your life?
Oh, where do I begin? I mean, firstly, Eustace, like the input that you have provided about this is absolutely incredible because I think I have similar perspective to what you have. And also, kudos for mentioning Robert Sapolsky. I know exactly who you're talking about. He is a very, very good professor. And if anyone listening, if you don't know who he is, I would really recommend you to listening to his lectures. I will leave links in the description so you could, have a reference of it. But with regards to consciousness, I personally believe that consciousness can be both your best friend and worst enemy. You have to understand that sometimes your consciousness can provide you some thoughts that you will most definitely have to disagree with, because some of the things that it can provide to you can be extremely immoral. you know. Or maybe I think my main confusion with consciousness can be this, like that I sometimes confuse it with subconsciousness. Like subconsciousness is basically your mind with no filter, whilst your consciousness is something that kind of helps you analyze things. Like you just make conclusions on the spot, you know, or at least you try to do it in your best ability. And it is a very, very interesting phenomenon, like considering that, like, we as human beings, we have these really great organs in our heads called the brains that can process so many things in some, like, in such fast ways and paces. But sometimes, you know, like, depending on how pure your mind is, or, you know, how focused your mind is, you can just simply, like, let your consciousness maybe slip by, and you can just perhaps think of something that you shouldn't have thought of, or you know, say something that you shouldn't have said. So to me, yeah, it's kind of like a battle between yourself, I guess, or battle against yourself. You just need to make sure that you know what you're thinking and know what you're doing.
And know what part of yourself you're battling, because you don't definitely want to battle the better part of yourself.
Exactly.
Well, like
yeah.
better is also a subjective meaning, but still, I mean.
Yeah, depending on, like, how, like, what you think of being the best version of yourself, you know, like, because if you want to be the best at doing the worst, then obviously you are not gonna cause a lot of good to your surroundings. But, you know, as long as you just focus on what is considered to be good and moral within society, then you definitely will play a big part in, you know, future developments of whatever you are, like, getting into. But yeah, I personally agree with both of your positions. I think both inputs were, like, really, really valuable, and again, Eustace, again, it's an incredible input, so thank you for that. Now, actually, if we just like kind of slightly move on to the different kind of question about the consciousness, what I've mentioned like a few moments ago is, like, if we, you know, when we witness things and we encounter things and when we just think about things, right? How often do you guys think that we actually have, sorry, how much time do you guys think that we have to actually analyze the experience that we have just witnessed?
Milliseconds, if not smaller.
Right. And do you think this is enough?
Well, for a deep analysis, probably not. Say, for example, I took this little course in social psychology on Coursera.
Right.
And it was primarily on social psychology, so it's like a kind of a subset of, like, your general psychology, right? And two types of research that were done that were super eye-opening. At first, what has been done was that in one study in the USA, two different types of pictures came out, and people were asked to analyze or essentially give their opinions on a person depending on their picture that they used to then put on the paper where they vote, right, for local mayor, I believe.
Right.
And two pictures of the same person. One that was pretty stoic, simple. They were black and white pictures. No smile, no nothing. Right. While the other one, the person was, one of their shoulders were forward, and he was slouched a little bit and had a smile. People were given 1 second, just a little blink, and they already formed opinions on those two people, on the person, depending on the picture. When asked if they thought that the person was actually ready for the position, they did not know what position he was in. The person who had the blank face and he was facing straight the camera, people actually thought that the person was more qualified to actually entering that position. They did not know what position, of course. but he looked more qualified. And it was the most amazing part was that later on the researchers decided to actually cut down on the time that the people would be exposed to that picture to 1/10 of a second. People were already able to make judgments on those people's, right? In a millisecond, right? They already had some sort of an idea. This is where the unconscious part of you comes in as well to help you, split-second decisions. And a bit more controversial one that I think, well, in my mind is a bit more controversial, was a study done looking at how interviewers interviewed interviewees for a job position. What happened was that the interviewer was given, a tool and had, measurements done of heart and pupil dilation and whatnot. And it was shown, or it was found that within the first minute, or not even minute, within the first 10 seconds, I believe, it wasn't even a minute, that they already had an opinion on you. Imagine that, because in 10 seconds, what could you do, right? You can only come in with the right attire that will, subjectively will look nice to the interviewer. You do not carry bags, because one of the interviewees carried a grocery bag that looked bad. And several other interviewees had different things about them. And the interviewer already had an opinion about you. And if that opinion was bad, you only had, 8. If that opinion was already good about you, you were pretty much, a pass. That's it at the start. You didn't even need to start speaking. However, if opinion about you was bad at the start from those 10 seconds, you had at least, on average, 8 good things. You needed to have at least 8 good things about you to actually, to return back to the top, top percentiles in the decision making, essentially. So, yeah, the unconscious. But yeah, the course is free. I would tell everybody to go see it, because it opens, at least opened my eyes quite a lot. So
yeah, if you could just after we finish this
exactly.
session, if you could just send me the link so I could leave it in the description. I think it will be very useful for everyone.
So
okay,
and that has big implications on the fact that, at least in my head, a little hypothesis came out that you can't exactly turn yourself from not judging people. It's in your genes in a way, already. You can then afterwards, of course, give, benefit of a doubt, of course, always, or maybe person has done or came in with a grocery bag because such and such reasons. But, how to say, it has pretty big implications, meaning that you're pretty fast on the decisions, on judgments, and you might not even realize it. You pretty much don't realize it, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Michael, do you have anything to add about this?
Yeah, most probably starting with a reflection on whatever everything Eustace just said. Well, I'm quite shocked actually by this information, so I definitely will go listen to the course and see what else in details can I think, but can I get to know from it. But definitely, Eustace, this is a wonderful reflection, and I realize now that not only this subconsciousness can be our best friend at points, but sometimes it can definitely, as you say, be definitely quite opposite as we fall into prejudice without even noticing it, and then we just have this faulty impression of a person that we have to or we want to deal with. So this is quite fascinating, yeah.
But then, at least just furthering the thought, but then imagine how strong a person you can be when you think twice. I do this, and then but I will give the person a benefit of doubt. Maybe he did it because of this or this reason. I will go ask, I will communicate, I will see, I will figure it out. Because in my head, maybe, what's in my head is not yet true, it's just my idea. So when you talk about the best version of yourself and stuff, that might be actually one of the characteristics already, right?
That's true, and it's from both sides actually. Not only not being prejudiced as a person observing, but also carrying yourself and providing this first impression properly from yourself, not being like
exactly.
Not clumsy. Clumsy, I think, is a trait that you cannot really change sometimes. Well, like being well set, well dressed, taking care of yourself, being conscious of yourself, as we spoke in the previous topic, and from a personal point of view, I would definitely, I never thought it went that deep for people. I believe that you had to have like it was a intellectuality thing to be able to jump to these quick conclusions and make so you say proper or right assumptions. I still believe it kind of is, but definitely have opened my position on this subconsciousness, and I strongly feel like it is definitely true, because like we cannot process with our minds, as you said, we cannot process this information that fast without being subconsciously, interacting subconsciously with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing I wanted to say is that, to be able to analyze the situation or the context within several seconds, or even within several parts of a second, tenths of a second or milliseconds, it depends on the situation actually. I believe there are several types of situation, even when I mean it goes more abstract from my point of view at this point, but there are situations where you really take it slow, even if you're like a quick thinking human. They especially for me, I discovered it when I started reading, and reading like not as a whole, because I believe everybody in our generation still was reading since like early childhood and toddler, pretty much. As a toddler, we also read like we've been read to, but then as a small child, we've been trying to practice and read books. But when you start reading like huge works of literature, like I would say War and Peace from Lev Tolstoy, which I didn't finish, I believe. We had it as a part of our school course, but it is quite a huge piece of literature to read. But when you try to keep in your mind and draw this picture in your mind of what is actually happening, of what writer is telling you, you have to do it very slow, and you have to reread maybe some aspects. And then if you for instance, if you have this whole picture, if you want if you feel like you have skipped any details, you then just go back and reread it to this process of analysis. Maybe it's not even called the process of analysis at that point, but it's still like you process, you build it up little by little, brick by brick. From this point of view, it's sometimes not easy to make a quick, not subconscious, but a quick conscious, result of the analysis. If I elaborate in it quite, just from subjectively. But sometimes it's I still believe that every human has brain capacity, at the other hand, to react quite quickly. For instance, this is definitely uncovered in stress and unusual situations when you have to when you don't even sometimes know what to do. But I believe it's also with the help of subconscious that you take this quick decision of what you should do. For instance, you're riding a bike and you see rocks thrown around on the road, and you are aware that you will not be able to turn away from it just because you're too close. So your best guess, and your mind builds up this best guess for you. Your best guess will be try to hold your steering wheel as fast as possible, and then build this logic chain from two options. If you fall off, then you have to cover your head and whatever, not the most valuable parts of your body. And if you don't fall off, you just be thankful, and you try to ride away, unharmed. So these are pretty much two options, and which originate from the one beginning that your mind reacts to when it sees an obstacle, for instance, and then you have this basis for your reaction already built in your mind. So I would say the analysis can be different. It depends on the state, it depends on the situation, it depends on the context, it depends on the speed of reaction that needs to be taken to actually get through the situation. So, but it's something like this.
From my perspective, I think the phrase "don't judge the book by its cover" is becoming more and more, important the longer you live. Because if you just keep judging, a person or an event by just its looks, without seeing the details, you can, it is much easier to make mistakes just basing on the appearance. Perhaps if you're trying to meet new people, you can find, for example, a really good-looking person, and you're either attracted to that person, or you just want to converse with that person, only then to find out that this person can cause you more harm than good, and perhaps it wasn't their intention or anything like that, but it's just how it is. Like, maybe there wasn't proper connection. And then you just perhaps barely notice a person who maybe behind the scenes, if that's the best way to describe it, or who is not really a center of attention. And then you find out that this person is probably the best person you have met in your life, either friend-wise or relationship-wise. And it is very important to try and fight against the bias that you may have developed during your life. Of course, you may have had experiences in your life with maybe specific events, or people or something like that, but you need to make sure that each person is unique in their own way. And if you just try and actually listen to them rather than just looking at them, and try to understand whether or not this person is for you or not for you, then I think that the society will be able to make more sober decisions in their lives, no matter what they're trying to do. The only unfortunate thing is that sometimes, as Eustace and you, Michael, have correctly said, sometimes it is not possible to take too much time into making decisions like this. You have to make decisions on the spot. You have to decide what can be done. Some life worthy decisions need to be done in literally 1/10 of a second, as Eustace has stated, or something like that. I would like to actually reminisce about one thing that I have seen a long time ago. If I manage to find it on YouTube, I will link it in the description as well. You guys remember the show called Brainiac, is that right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was an interesting show, British based, if I remember correctly.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and there was this really interesting episode where there was this person who was applying for a job. He was invited for an interview. he did 2 interviews. In first one, it was a regular interview with a couple of people from the higher up positions, like manager, CEO, and all that stuff, and it was just a normal kind of interview, like if you know what I'm talking about, just regular questions about the career opportunities, the salary, that kind of stuff, etc., etc., right? And the interview could then concludes, and then in the second interview, what has been changed is that those people on the higher ups, they were wearing nothing but the underwear, right? And you probably understand where this is going. So the person comes back, obviously has a shock, and his reactions are much more chaotic, and much more challenging for him to control. And what eventually has happened is that this interviewee was graded based on these 2 experiences. And if I remember correctly, overall he has been graded, on average. Obviously, the second interview has gone worse due to the unusual circumstance. And then that was the conclusion of the experiment. If I can find it, I will most definitely leave it in description. If you, ladies and gentlemen, don't see it in description, I do apologize. That means that I haven't found it. I'm sorry. But consciousness, subconsciousness, and experience analysis, if we practice these, and if we reach them at least close to perfection, I think that it will be a great step to having a pure mind, and trying to make and we will be able to make much more sober decisions that we do now. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to add.
Good.
Yes,
I agree.
Yeah. So, Michael, is there anything else that you would perhaps like to add? Maybe not just to this particular topic, or maybe there's something else that you want to talk about?
well, yeah, maybe I could ask Eustace actually to elaborate on maybe have a highlight, provide us a highlight of something interesting that he has learned throughout the school course, and by school I mean university. So, because I know, Eustace, you are now studying psychologically oriented field, then I might want. I'm quite curious actually at this point that what might be a food for thought for a rather.
Food for thought, yeah.
Yeah, not for the person who is like a professor of psychology, but rather like for people like us. What helpful insight could you provide us from your studies?
Yeah, how to say, from the start, yeah. I'm not the greatest, and I'm studying the softest possible, psychological studies possible, which is pretty much marketing. But as you can understand, my passion lies within behavior, consumer behavior, and psychology in general. I'm just fascinated by it. But just moving away from talking about other people, I think I personally was a kind of a underachiever when I studied my first degree. I primarily didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, and I chose to study in Denmark just because, it was a cool degree that I could study. Later on, after working multiple different jobs after graduation and not exactly finding one a place to work at, or for that matter one that would be connected to my degree, I kind of did a lot of introspection. I tried to figure myself out, and first I came across I believe his name was Alan Watts, through which I found Jung, through which I found more about psychology and so forth. And it became my passion, that through that passion I kind of could direct myself, a bit more towards what I wanted to do with my life. And this So when I went back to school to study marketing, soft psychology, whatever, I saw a different me, essentially. And I saw within the younger classmates that I have right now, they're by 5 years younger than me, I see myself pretty much. They repeat the same sentences that I do. They repeat the same thing. They do the same things that I did. Or they don't do the same things that I didn't do. I don't know if that made sense. But anyway. But what I want to say is that I think that having this kind of a direction or this thing to latch onto really helped me. And whenever classmates come up to me and say, oh my God, you got this good grade, and how did you do it? How did you figure out that, what teachers wanted to hear from you? And the only thing I could say is that I know what you're going through. Be chill. The only difference between me and you, I'm not smarter than you. I'm not putting myself, above you. I'm just a person who likes what he does, right? I can't put in the 5+ hours every day, to make a project, for school, because I'm actually interested in this, and that was what took me by surprise, really, when I started, marketing, and started just having, this thing that I liked, that I could sink in so many hours into and not be tired. I started looking back at at the YouTubers that I've followed, life coaches, whatever, and or successful people in general, and I believe I understand where they're coming from. Say Sapolsky, for example, I believe he was super into some baboons, since he was 12, and suddenly he grew to be this amazing guy, doing free courses and online, posting them on YouTube, and just being overall, super, super smart person, So yeah, that was my experience, that I was caught off guard, I guess. And
this is bliss. Truly, it is a wonderful thing when you find this, sorry, this not a gist even, but it's like a load of inspiration that you run along the way, and for fulfilling especially such a valuable thing as education, for me it is definitely a treasure's value that you expose. So in a sense that I would love to be so passionate about my studies when I was studying. I would have loved. Well, I might go study again. I believe God knows what happens next, but I believe that someday I will definitely see university once again. Maybe even as a PhD. But as I'm saying, no predictions yet made. But still, the thing is that I'm truly inspired by what you say, and I definitely see value in finding this specific and like a set thing that you like to do every day, and you build it. You become like conscious of yourself being more into it. You understand that you figure out that your thoughts are linked to it. You figure out that your habits build around it, so the pattern of your every day builds around it. So as you say, you spend several hours a day doing a project, and besides, if you don't have a project to do for school, I believe you are just self-educating on this topic.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is amazing, and I liked a lot what you said, especially at the first, and what you actually managed to mentor your younger course mates about. being true to yourself, realizing and not being feared to say that, of course, in the past I haven't been most productive, in the past I haven't been passionate, in the past I haven't been coping with myself that good. I believe at a part, I don't want to say like this, how to say, parapsychologist, right, or whatever, not people that are quite popular today on the internet. No offense to them, they do their thing. I do mine, but still, sometimes I I hear this abstract thing. Oh, you have to be, on the same wave with yourself. You have to find the vibe. But this is the vibe, quite real thing. This is the vibe that you have provided yourself for, and
Exactly.
and this started really from you being true and you trying to understand what is true for you, being clear about what you want to be set with in life and what you try to set up for yourself in life. Especially being in this psychology thing as a greatest example, as I remember us speaking about this back in my days in Denmark. When we were, when you just graduate, and we recently got acquainted, so we started speaking about different things, and you told me right off the bat that one of the things that you want to do in life is psychology, and that you are really interested in it. And this is great. I mean, this is something that I might most probably have to discover yet. I mean, I'm quite passionate about. I'm quite fascinated about the things I am doing right now. It's just maybe something that I need to also admit to myself that I need to be more. How do I say, specific about the things I expect from my everyday, from my life in the further, because for me as we started talking about this, it is a little bit funny of how I imagined always my life, and how I am carrying on with it is the thing that I always, I don't really set up this 5-year plans. Well, I might go for one in the nearest future. I will see though. Yeah, I will see though. But I might go for one of them. But the thing is that I always, imagine. Okay, so I will graduate my bachelor's. I will be, set with this free time, set with this job. Maybe have some more time for working. I was working like. Harder from time to time to graduate my bachelor's. It didn't come that easy for me. It didn't come easy for anyone. I'm not saying that it's easy to graduate, but still it didn't come easy for me. Then I graduated my bachelor's. I had my job that became a full-time job that I was still doing for several years, and also when I was living in Denmark I was doing it remotely. But the thing is that it was a summer. The second moment of freedom after the first is when you graduate high school, and the second when you graduate bachelor's, and then you start asking yourself, so, do you feel qualified enough? Do you feel enough? How to say? Not courageous, but do you feel? Do you feel not brave? Oh my God, I forgot the necessary
encouraged,
word.
you mean?
No, not encouraged, but sorry. Do you feel confident in yourself enough to continue your work, to not continue but to start your work without having any further education? Are you mature enough? Are you skillful enough? So for me, the ultimate answer was not really. And I before I graduated bachelor's, I'm thankful actually for being able to apply for IELTS tests. So I took IELTS tests, and then I applied to Denmark to study in Denmark for my master's. So this was quite a good direction for me to take, and so I did it. Also, thanks to my parents for helping me to pursue this, even though it also wasn't easy for me to be in Denmark. But I mean, it's something that we all learn from. So the thing I'm leading to is that in Denmark also, when I started masters, I told myself, so when I finish masters I will be this and this and this. After bachelor's I was while I was studying bachelor's I was saying myself I will be this and this and this by the time I graduate. Now that I have graduated masters, actually for masters it was quite more specific, so I wanted to be working on my current workplace, which is city development department of the city of Riga. And yeah, and I was at the university thinking, oh, it could be quite cool to be working there. And I believe it was a fate thing, because I applied for practice and I managed to get this practice spot. And then after I graduated I started working at the same workplace. So it kind of was written for me. But the thing is that I always also becoming like having arrived to this workplace, I always also thought about it differently before I started working it. I imagined that, okay, I have this internship there, it's much more limited than I have my job. It's much more, like a free trial, like a demo. So when I start job, I will be doing bigger and was like straight away like the more scaled and more specific things. And it actually for the first year it didn't come to life as well. It's been ups and downs, not like proper ups and downs, but it was more psychologically ups and downs. And I believe even at that point I was like saying to myself, okay, I might I will be let's work for another year. It's just because it's my first year at the work. The second year will be much better, and it actually turned out true, because I started this bigger project for the department. So and became a project manager for this. So this is what feeds me right now. But the thing is that I always had this. To summarize it all up, I began it several times already, but I haven't spoken like this solely about this. The thing is, I have a feeling that I wasn't really always, just truthful to the most to myself. I was trying to, get this, imagine the things and put then my imagination in place, not the real thing I was getting. And partly it went also from me not being most probably clear about what I really want. So I had an idea that I want to work for Riga City Council. I didn't know to do what or to do or why, because I most probably could have applied to many different things. But I'm happy now, and I was happy even when I applied to the job. The thing is that in my master studies, I was also persuading myself that I want to study urban planning, but I didn't really know what specifically in urban planning, what disciplines should I focus more. If I would go more specific about this from my bachelor's, I most probably could have also chosen other schools, or just another program in the same school I went to. Again, I'm not that I'm like pissed about my education or whatever, not. So it's like always for me, I was not being enough clear. I was not being enough truthful to myself, which has impacted my choice. Gladly, thank God, it worked out for me quite well. But now from this position of today, looking back on it, I think I could have been more specific about the things I'm looking for. So this is the thing, and I most probably I was probably want to hear your guys' reflections about this. Maybe you have something similar growing through your mind. Yeah.
Well, I firstly thank you so much for such a really, really useful feedback that you have provided. From my perspective, I've mentioned noticed that you have started talking more about, like, being truthful and clear with yourself. Uh, I think to be truthful is perhaps one of the most important values a human can have, because lying definitely doesn't help in the long term. Because should you lie not just to everyone but to yourself, it will all come back. There's this boomerang effect. And the more you lie, the harder the boomerang will hit you at the back of your head. Um, the thing is that back in the day, I too have not been truthful to myself. I have been extremely dishonest. I've been telling lies. I have been hiding the truth from my family, from some of my friends, especially during the rough years of my life, which I have described in the earlier episode. This all has happened simply because I was telling lies. I think after this rough experience that I have had, I finally learned that should I just simply say the truth, everything can be resolved. Uh, if I did say, if I confess to my parents that, yeah, I have been homeless, I need help, I think they would simply just assisted me in any way possible. If I was just straightforward with most of the friends, I'm pretty sure there was a way for them to support me as well. But I didn't do that, and that made life much more difficult. Not just those particular years, but the aftermath of it, because I feel like even though lots of years have passed after that, but I feel like I have wasted so much of my time just getting back on my feet and getting things sorted out, and I could have simply avoided that by simply telling the truth. Now, I have recently read a really interesting document, or an article rather, by one author. I forgot his name, and it was literally called Manifesto for the Based, right? And what I have learned from this article, I know it sounds, funny and, Gen Z kind of humoresque and all that stuff, but the person was saying really good points. And the one that I remember the most, which got stuck in my mind ever till this day, is that in order to be, as they say, based, you only need to do two things. You need to be honest and you need to be funny. If you can do these two things on your own, and on its own as is, then pretty much the rest will be much simpler for you. Like, you can simply address the things that you want to address, raise any concerns you want to concern, and just basically don't care, or not caring, no, sorry, that's the wrong phrasing. Like, not be too much bothered about how other people would feel about it. I mean, of course, reflect on it and appreciate their concerns, but you have to speak for yourself. I am a strong advocate of freedom of speech, obviously, and I believe that if we address the things without worrying much about who are we going to offend or who are we not going to offend, I think we will be able to help ourselves and each other to be more truthful to ourselves and to each other. When we do that, I think there will be much more genuine conversations at a more frequent basis. So, honesty and entertainment, of course, I think these two values, they are playing big part, not just in my life, but I hope in many, many people's lives as well. So that's pretty much my perspective.
Well, as I don't think I exactly have strong feelings towards truthfulness and clarity of expressing ourselves, as I see. But how to say? It's not that I don't have like some conclusions for myself, but as I've been learning, for the past few months now, that truthfulness is not only for you, right, but only for the other people as well. Whatever it might be, however close to your feelings or your thoughts. Sharing it with others is good, right? Because communication is important, right? Either avoiding certain situations or putting yourself in a better situation, it's always great. But in terms of truthfulness and expressing yourself, at least the one thing that I think internet does sometimes is, or situations, they sometimes can dehumanize other people, and I believe that should be kind of avoided if for the good of everybody involved, I believe. But because again, dehumanization leads towards anger and so forth, and anger can culminate into false accusations or just hurting an innocent person with words, right? And so forth.
That's true. Yeah, I definitely find it true, because there is no real responsibility when you're under so-called mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're dehumanized, when you don't, and you might also not be in your psycho, in your mental state. You might not be willing to conflict, to oppose a real human being. You just oppose this, a person in the a nearly fictional person on the internet, which you didn't ever see in your real life, so you don't have any how to better say justifications or purposes to think that they are real. And this is definitely what you're definitely what you mentioned in your elaboration. So definitely dehumanization and masking is not helping being truthful, and is not helping being honest and conscious of your own deeds. So yeah, but it's still the way many people choose to live right now. It is still a 21st century thing, I believe. What could be the coping mechanisms, especially in these times? I cannot say I can hit them right from the bat. No pun intended. It's just that we have everything going so digital right now. Having emails, and even people encouraging emailing or slacking or teamsing, if it's an actual word, just communicating in any of the communicational platform, Google Meeting, whatever not, instead of having a call or meeting a person in real life, just because what happens, and then everybody is quite cautious, which I believe we still should be. And the thing is that also in work relations, I've seen from my own working and living experience that it leads to me being less less consistent of what I do for my work, and less caring, especially when I don't have my camera on. I specifically understand that nobody can really see what I'm doing, and I cannot see what everybody else is doing, so I believe I lose a little focus from it, and I lose a little desire to express my best when it goes like this. But still, I mean, completely depends on the situation. Sometimes it's you're doing the most without any lights on you, as you say. But sometimes you just hide in the shadows of your webcam being off. But yeah, it's a way of living, definitely, what we are dealing with. And I believe even when the global thingy ends, after hopefully it does in a year or so, people will still be quite encouraged to carry on with I don't know, this digital outcastism, could I say? No, I wouldn't say so, maybe.
I believe
But
it's called.
digital separation.
I believe it's called digital nomads, right?
Digital
There you go.
nomadism, right? Yeah.
Ah, yes, I know which ones you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Digital nomadism. I believe it still could be a thing even after everything that we are going through ends, just because people already got so many things of this embedded in their routines. Myself, I'm not the most technologically advanced person, but I get to start to use more and more apps for my phone as well. They don't replace the live communication for me yet, but I mean, yeah, a lot of things have been transferred, so you don't need to appoint many things to get the services and the products that you're seeking after. Pretty much, I would say now that 21st century especially is a year of passive mobility, where you can do most of the things from home, which is at one and the same time great and not so great thing. The greatest from this is definitely is that you have all the services accessible to you, right? So you have food deliveries, product deliveries. You have subscriptions for different products, including self-care, even clothes, I believe, food, whatever not. You just as conveniently as you pay your bills, you can get all the services quite brought to you, and you will not have to be bothered anymore just to pay the monthly bill, which is cool. But this also quite kind of not destroys, but it slows down and dismantles the older mechanisms, the more authentic and vintage mechanisms of how people are used to act, or how people are some people want to act. For instance, social activity can be pretty much anything except for the processes of human care that they need to carry on their own. Instance is that we have spoken with Nick on the previous episode that I have attended. We have spoken about cooking, and now I could definitely elaborate that cooking in the company of some people is even more fun, especially if you're doing it outdoors. This is definitely something that people like to experience, and it's not only that it's not a minority of people who like this process, instead of like just having the food delivered to them. Other than that, live meetings, just seeing your colleague in person definitely provides completely different feelings, maybe, your perception. So even though you see them on the screen, I also have heard that it's a psychological thing. Maybe Eustace, you can just elaborate on this a little bit more, that when you see a person on the screen, it is still, even if we understand that this person is right speaking to us, even it's still that the fact that we don't see this person standing right in front of us, it kills some part of this, emotional field of our expression. So it still kills a part of us being, more expressive and more not open, but emotional to be speaking to these people. Could this be true from the psychological point of view?
Well, there have been two things that I have been involved where I looked at debates or just some talks about this kind of a thing, where you lose connections, and you're out of a group. Primarily, one of them was actually online diplomas, online courses. Actually, the accredited ones, where you can get a bachelor's degree and even sometimes even a master's, depending if it requires you to be somewhere specific. it has been said by Noam Chomsky as well that, comparing the brick and mortar universities to these completely online universities, one thing that you're missing out on is the connections, the interactions between your group mates, your teachers, and teachers' assistants and whatnot. However, how it is kind of rebuted is where some of these universities that are online, I believe one of them is called Open University, while the other one is called Arden University. They actually attempt to put everything, again, as you say, on Teams, and have conversations with cameras on and so forth on like subjects, on several subjects, or maybe group works, where where it becomes more interesting is where when you look at qualitative data collection, interviews, one-to-one interviews, focus groups, and so forth. There has been pretty big methodological implication on like having interviews over Zoom while the cameras are on, and people try to figure out if there is, what kind of an effect does it have, One thing is that both of these had in common was that while people are studying online, for example, they are in a position of comfort. They're in their room, they're in their house. They don't have to go anywhere, they're comfortable. And therefore, they have, a bigger, of course, they have a chance of, slacking off at some point. But in essence, the comfortability actually increases their productiveness because they have more energy, all in all, right? Or something like that, from what I see. And also, the same thing has been seen, especially, of course, if it's a thing that the person actually does on their own volition, right? Because if it is in person's interest, then their productivity is actually pretty great, if not the same as working or studying at the brick and mortar schools. But where the implications for qualitative data studies, I read 2 articles. In one of them, they said that if a person has the camera on, and it was primarily concerned on the data saturation, knowing that you actually collected all the data that you could, right? Is it achievable through online interviews? It actually said that it is pretty much just as possible collecting data, through interviews face to face as it is collecting it online. As again, the emphasis is on, the location where the person is. It is their home. It is their comfort position, right? And if the interviewee comes on their own volition, they will be as open, as they would be when they talk with, a friend or something like that. Just because of the comfortability that your house gives, right? But of course, it is like qualitative data, and it's pretty nuanced. Many different people, as Nicholas said, are different, and their situations might be different. They might see the interviewer in a different light, and so forth. So, how to say? I believe and another thing that I heard, I believe it came from Portugal, where the Portuguese actually decided that, quite recently, that it will be illegal for your bosses to actually call you during the weekends. Because it actually became apparent that your workload actually, while you were working from home, your workload continued into your weekend. Right. So, for example, in Denmark, it is not, I don't think it's illegal, but it's socially unacceptable, right, for your boss to call you, during your weekend. While, say, for example, in Lithuania, where I'm from, it happens all the time. Maybe even in Latvia, I imagine, right? If a project is ongoing, it might go into your weekend and eat out of your, free time and stuff like that. But yeah, so the corona times have given many people much thought, but I'm guessing everybody's still learning, what's the difference, what's happening, what's what, and is this online thing great or bad? I'm guessing the one answer is it's complicated, Yeah, and again, you have to look at the person, their interests, and so forth. So yeah.
I like actually quite like the fact that you brought up this different culture things, and I haven't heard about this case in Portugal. Once again, thanks for enlightening me, and I believe I'm not the only one to be hearing this for the first time. And definitely, as you said, in our countries, Latvia, Lithuania, it is quite. It's not that it's so common, but it is a possible thing that you can be called. Earlier we said called up to go, but now you can just be called up to sit on your computer. It's not that it's not that it happens often, and especially if you're a project manager yourself, I believe you are the one deciding
You're the one that calls.
The one that calls, yeah. But yeah, I mean, still, me as a project manager don't have any employees on my behalf, so I'm doing the management myself, and I'm monitoring this how to say, the content thing myself. So it's okay. It's still like it's still a good thing. But the thing is that I like the way of living notice because you see how different it is for different cultures. Northern and Western culture would not ever accept work. How they say, intruding their personal space, personal life, especially on weekends. And I believe even working from home was quite a topic of a discussion, that there were publications and advices from social experts to allocate your workspace at your home, not in the same place that you like spend your leisure time, and you sleep, or you do some other activities, so just to not have it overlapping. It's not a real chance for me, so I'm when I'm working remotely now, I'm doing it from my bedroom. I have my workplace, my bed, and everything else here, so it's a small world that I attend. But other than that, yes, definitely in Latvia and Lithuania, we by we I mean local people were definitely more used to go to work, and by saying go to work, I definitely emphasize the action of commuting, about the action of traveling, and we have really spoken about this with my colleagues recently. And they were some of, and even like in the same environment, the opinions have quite varied. Some people told that commuting is nice. You get to spend some time on the free, like on the not on the free, but like on the open air, and you get to breathe while the air is still. It's fairly clean in Riga, so. It's a great thing that people can still enjoy some walks even when it's commuting to or back from work. At the same time, other people told that commuting in autumn or winter is, well, if not a torture, then definitely a punishment of themselves, just because it's quite. If it's not cold, it's nasty. If it's cold, then it's cold and nasty. So frequently, just because you have the snow, not melted, not stiff, just something like a porridge laying around the streets. But the thing is, as for me myself, I enjoy. I kinda cannot say what I prefer more. Actually, it's just the different kind for me. So when I go to work, I'm definitely feeling more focused. But when I stay to work at home, I definitely feel that I have more time, and that I can like orient myself a little bit easier. So I have this parallel things that I can do besides work. So I spare some time in the evening. So this is also like it's a complicated situation, as you say, to completely say that something is much better than other things. But I definitely enjoy walking by foot. It's kind of my main mean of commuting. So when I don't go to work, it's definitely a thinking thing for me. What can I replace my commuting routine with if I stay at home? So yeah, this is definitely an interesting question. Nick, how has it been with you?
Well, yeah. First things first. Excellent conversation so far. Lots of really good points. So the what I think is working in the office is definitely better for me. Thing is that I have tried both perspectives now. So I worked in the office and I worked from home. The thing is that, when the what has hit us, right, and we had to stay indoors for long periods of time, working from home at first was, pretty cool because it gave me the opportunity to, enjoy the silence and just experiencing a bit of solitude so I could, probably recharge and such. But then at some point it started getting really, really challenging because, I live on my own, family's not nearby, or, any significant others or anything like that. None is nearby, It was a bit difficult to socialize during those times. I mean, of course you could socialize virtually, but it's nothing compared to, socializing in person. There's just no way that virtual socializing will at some point replace the actual in-person conversations, because we as people, I believe that we are social creatures, and having a physical presence nearby always kind of gives you a bit more boost in optimism and positivity. But of course, there are some instances where it is not possible, long distance and or conditions such as lockdowns and all that stuff. Sometimes we have to deal with these things, and with the wonders of technology, we can do that, of course. But yeah, working in the office, I think I believe is a much better experience, simply because you have people nearby that you can talk to and work with. You don't need to worry about setting up the tech to make sure that everything sounds okay and all that stuff. You feel less distracted when you have like a physical in-person meetings and stuff. Like, you feel more involved, I guess. I think that's the best way of describing it. Like, that you can simply just not interfere, but give your input as pretty much as soon as you hear it. Also, no issues with like network delays, because it is the person is right next to you, I guess. That's the thing of it. And yeah, it's to me, personal experience is better than virtual one. That's what I can say. Now, I mean, obviously, other people can have different opinions, and some people can have the same opinions. But thankfully, we live in the times where both in-person meetings and virtual meetings are possible, and everyone can either A, adapt to them with ease, or B, we can always find the platforms to actually converse with each other, no matter what our preferences are. So but you've been mentioning lots and lots of points, and I really didn't want to distract both of you because you've been providing so many points. But it's just that there's been so much. There's so much that I need to process right now, because lots of really, really good points, and I cannot thank you enough for discussing this. And I really hope you have enjoyed the conversation. Unfortunately, I can see by the time that we are approaching this very special mark of 1 hour and 30 minutes. And even though I believe that there is still lots that we can talk about, I think it will be worth perhaps saving this for another time if you guys are interested in coming back and discussing more. So I hope this is okay. So with that being said, I just want to say, thank you very much for joining today. It's been a really interesting conversation, and I do hope you've enjoyed this experience as well. And yeah, so is there perhaps before we conclude today's conversation, let's start with you, Eustace. Is there anything you want to say to our audience before we conclude today's conversation?
One thought that I had was, as an example, take the work at home or work at an office. Like, at least what helps me is try to search for a third option. Maybe, say for example, actually having both at the same time gives you more freedom. Maybe one day, one Friday, you would like to work at home because you're tired, or again, the commute is pretty bad. Always searching for the third option before you commit to either one or the other is, a good practice. At least that's what I try to do always. Because maybe the third option is going to be even more, even more accessible, even more fun, even more freeing, maybe, so yeah. So I always try to look for more options, right? Because they might come in different ways and at different times even. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your input. Michael, would you like to add anything before we conclude?
I do, yeah. I would love to start with a little riddle as to what Eustace said. Seeking for the third option. Sorry. In terms of working from home or working from office, my first idea was that Eustace would tell you, like, try to experiment. Try to stay at your office overnight. Try to move to your office to live,
Go to
or
your
whatever
office.
not. So yeah, just make
Yeah, that'll be too extreme, I think.
place of living. Yeah, but I definitely can relate, because when I started masters in Denmark, there was needed for some of paperwork needed to be done. So I took my computer and I left for uni campus, and I didn't think about this as much. I just spotted myself sitting outside at the table, just working, and gladly enough there were some chargers for laptops. So you just if you find a spot like this somewhere in the park, especially when it's warm, not when it's like cold and whatever, not humid outside, when it's warm and pleasant, you just can definitely take some blissful sits out in the park. And yeah, definitely everything is an experience. For me, I would definitely say I would like to carry on and just a couple of words dropped about this. Everything is definitely an experience, and choosing pretty much every day starts with something unique that a person has. Waking up, doing your routine maybe is not so much of an experience, but everything starting with breakfast, deciding what do you want to have today, what if you want to cook, or if you want to eat out, or if you want to grab a coffee or a tea, maybe some chocolate drink or whatever not. Everything is an experience, and it just builds up in a longer chain of experiences that we have that make pretty much our day, and then every day is a shell of its own. And this is why I decided to try to do journaling. As I'm saying, I'm not that good in it, but it definitely helps a little bit, just to be more conscious about my choices, my experiences that come to me or that I choose throughout the day. So I would definitely encourage everyone to consider, I don't want to insist, but just try to consider maybe thinking about what you are doing, what songs are you listening to, what you're choosing, and being there for your moral choices every day.
Okay. Well, what I can add about this is, like, the third option hypothesis, or not even a hypothesis, but third option advice, it isn't just about work or any specific things.
Exactly.
It's just about everything, because there's always an option that you do not see. Like when you see the bigger picture, then more things will make sense. And I think I will join both Eustace and Michael by saying, always keep an eye on the third option. Perhaps there is much more that you do not see straight away. But yes, I think this will be a really good point to conclude today's conversation. I know there were more topics that we were thinking about talking, but we had such an interesting conversation so far. Unfortunately, time is against us, and we can probably just come back at some point and maybe continue with the topics that we may have skipped at some point. But all I can say is, from the bottom of my heart, I think I say this on behalf of my audience as well, is sincerely thank you for making this experience so entertaining. Michael, once again, thank you so much for coming back, and thank you for providing such an excellent feedback about things. It's really good. I'm pretty sure people listening to this have enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed listening. And Eustace, thank you so much. Like, your perspective was probably more professional thanks to your experience, and I think that lots of people will take your words into consideration, and I do hope that is the case. So, gentlemen, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys being my guests tonight. So thank you, Michael, and thank you, Eustace.
Thank you as well.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, and as for myself, I have not been talking that much during this episode, mainly because I have been just listening to such great inputs from my guests and my friends, I guess. I think that's a really good way of describing them, because it has honestly been a great experience. But on that note, I would like to remind you all that even though life is a cruel and unjust place, we can always enjoy the sunsets. My name is Nicholas Malson. This has been Smile Once Again, episode 15. And I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we have enjoyed recording it. Thank you very much, and have a pleasant evening. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.